My name is Dave, and we're at a house that has a problem. It has rusty water inside the pipes whenever they run the bathtub, or if they go on vacation, they get rust out of the water. Okay, we're at the front of the house now, and I see a pipe coming through the ground near the house. That's for a hose right here, and it's a steel pipe. So I'm betting that somewhere in here, if I scrape back this sandbar, we're going to find a valve or a water pipe that enters the foundation under the house. And there it is. Right there with the orange handle. Now the next thing is to dig this area up to find out where the copper connects to the steel that we know is under the house. The house is plumbed in steel pipe under the house. There may be some copper attached to that steel, but we know we have copper to the water meter, so we're digging up the section in front of the house to find out where it attaches from copper to steel here. Okay, now we found the copper line from the water meter. That's here. So we see right away that these old dielectrics, when we open them up, have rusted across their rubber and plastic bushings inside. And the electrolysis from the copper and the steel, being dissimilar metals, is now rotting this pipe. Okay, we're getting ready to go underneath the house and look at the plumbing system there. But I wanted to stop here at this time and look at what we've got here. What we have is a piece of copper pipe coming up from out of the house. It's connected to a steel coupling. This is a steel coupling that's been painted over. And this is a brass 90 fitting that threads on one side and solders on the other. And it comes up here and it comes out into this valve. Now, judging by the age of the handle and the valve, I can tell that this was probably done before the solder changed to silver. In other words, this is probably lead-type solder that's in here. And that's not approved anymore, and it's an assumption on my part, but it bears speaking about it this time. Okay, we're here at the opening, crawling back underneath the house to set up our lights, and we spread plastic all over to keep the dust down and to keep the moisture out of the crawl space. Got a lot of plastic all over the ground. It minimizes the dust, although it's kind of a nuisance if it isn't pinned to the ground, and it keeps the moisture levels down underneath the house. So our intention is to leave the plastic in the crawl space even after we're done with the work. Interesting note. There's another piece of steel pipe right alongside these silver ones, different color. It's brown like rust. This is the gas piping, which goes up through the floor to the water heater. And it's in black iron with steel fittings. And this is not to be touched or cut at any time through the work that's being done here. But they have combination plumbing, meaning both galvanized and copper, and they connect underneath here. And they may not connect with the proper fittings, and they may be causing a lot of the red, rusty water inside his bathtub. Off in the distance, we can see a red pipe, which is copper. So far, we have not found a junction of copper and steel pipe yet, and that's what we're looking for. I found our first junction of copper pipe to steel pipe. There's two of them. One of them is right here, and I'll point to it. Maybe you can see, this is a steel fitting here. It's a T with a 1/2-inch branch, 3/4 by 3/4 by 1/2-inch T. And this is a copper male adapter screwed right into the steel. Now this dissimilarity of metals causes corrosion, and this is probably one of the primary points where the rust in the water comes from. The tea looks fairly good. It doesn't appear that there's water dripping off of it, although it is shiny. But generally, if we don't see any rust dripping off them, we're not worried that they're corroded to a point where we need to replace them. But we definitely need to break the electrolysis by taking the steel and the copper and separating them permanently. Now this appears that has been done possibly by a softener company, because this piece of copper right here follows right into this fitting, which is a union, not a dielectric union, but it's done properly. It has a brass nipple which protects both the copper and the steel when you screw this between copper and steel. This is the steel coupling here. This is a brass union here with a copper solder joint on the outside. Once again, I want to stress that this work was probably done before silver solder was required by law. This is probably 50-50 solder, which contributes to lead contamination in the water. We intend to do away with this softener connection and connect completely up with 1-inch copper from one end of the house to the other. But right here, I want to go back to what we talked about, this softener that used to be here. The softener company that put this in tied this in a year where lead solder was still approved. I cut through the solder and realized it is 50-50 solder and it has lead in it. So we're going to bypass all of this copper that's underneath the house and cut as much of it loose as we can and remove it from the house so that it's just not hanging all over the place. And we're going to do away with it for the fact that the lead is toxic, quite a bit more toxic than rust in the rusty pipes, and is not good to drink. So outside of the annoyance of having red water and not wanting to cook or drink it, we have the problem of the hidden saturation of lead in the water. So we're going to do away with that. Okay, let's recap a little bit. The original problem at this house was that there was rust in the water pipes. So we wanted to take care of that rust and make it go away without purchasing a softener, which would filter some of the water. I determined that the house had galvanized piping system with copper tied into it. A lot of the galvanized piping was contributing to the rust in the water. The reason is the corrosion was coming from inside the the steel pipes. Now, we discovered by crawling underneath a couple of things. We discovered that there was copper tied right into the steel piping, and that exacerbated the problem with some electrolysis. Electrolysis occurs whenever you have dissimilar metals, copper attached to steel. And we needed to take out all of those joints that where copper touched steel in direct contact. When we got into the job, we discovered that somebody had cut a softener in on the side, and we determined that the piping they used was copper, and that it also was used with 50-50 solder, lead solder. And that's an unhealthy situation to have that many fittings under a house contributing to lead saturation in their water system.